And we're live. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, really good. It's Friday, and
Yes,
everything just feels better on a Friday, doesn't it?
it certainly does. I'm very pleased that it's Friday. It's been a busy week. It's been a busy Friday for me, actually. I've spoken to a lot of people today, actually. Some as the interviewer, this time as the interviewee. So yeah, it's been a busy one.
So I'm at the end of a long line of interviews today for you.
Correct. That's right. That's right. Yes, it's weird. Usually I do this on a Monday. Mondays are like usually interview day for me, but this week it happens to be Friday, which is fine too.
And I guess prior to COVID, Friday would always be one of the best nights of the week for you because and Saturday because that's when you're planning your sets and getting ready to get out and get in amongst it, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, prior to COVID and also kind of prior to having children, even more so as well. But yeah, for sure, it's been weird this year having no gigs. I don't think maybe did a couple before COVID, like in January and February. But yeah, it's been really, really strange not playing. Most of my other fellow music producers and DJs have been doing the live streams, Facebook Live, Twitch, things like that. But I decided not to, mainly being because I had a bit of a production break. I'll go back. I'll tell you a story in a minute.
Yeah, no, go for it. Go for it.
And then I've kind of come back in and started producing hard dance music and hardstyle, hard trance music again this year. But I didn't want to start going live and doing the Facebook Live DJing thing off the back of a bit of a break, and also having not released that much fresh music in the last year sort of thing. So for those that know me and for those that don't, I was part of a production and DJ duo with my good friend Joe Sutherland, aka Side Effect, for quite a few years. And we used to DJ together as a duo and produce music together for many years. And then what happened? We both decided we wanted to do techno. So we were doing hard dance for years and years and years. And then, I don't know, we got bored of that for some reason. Both love techno. And the hard dance that we were making has always had a techno edge in places with the deep kicks. Producers would know them as gated kicks.
It's interesting. A lot of DJs that come from playing hard dance have gone to techno. Lashes has, RG has, a few DJs have gone in that. It's because techno fans probably won't appreciate this, but they are similar. They are similar in terms of the way the tracks are constructed, the bass. I often listen to it and think, oh, wow, it's back to the old 90s sounds of Plymouth or Dance Academy or something. Sometimes it feels like that, but I mean, I know they're different, and there's all different types of techno. But it does seem like a few harder dance DJs have gone this route.
For sure. And RG, as you mentioned, he's one that kind of jumps out to me straight away as having done that. RG crossed over, so he was a hard dance DJ. He kept his name RG. He's crossed over into techno. Yeah, he's doing really well now. He's really, really doing well. He's making some amazing music. I love all of his new stuff. He's great. Another one to check out actually for that sort of techno, which is it's techno, but it's quite hard, and it has got, because they're like former hard dance DJs. You could tell it's got a bit of that influence. It's tough. Is T78, and he used to be called DJ Activator or Acti as hardstyle.
Oh, right. Yeah, create the Subdrown scene, kind of.
Yes.
Didn't he? Oh, I used to love him. Like, really loved him. And I used to love that Subground sound was that I loved for really, because RG was playing Subground for a bit, and that's I just love that, and it sort of came in and then it sort of went out again. And I've always been like, bring Subground back. Well, who's playing Subground? Bring it back, because I still love that sound.
Yeah, it was a cool subgenre for a while, wasn't it? It was like a mix of EDM and hardstyle and techno, and with old school, early hard dance, early techno rave influences. It was good. It was a good mashup, but I don't know, for some reason, I think I don't know, I think they decided to drop it as a concept, and that was it. I think Manuel moved on and decided to go into techno as well.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't quite pick up the following, just like other. It's kind of almost because it's a little bit in between. It's not techno, it's not hard. So it's like, what crowd are going to go on a main set to listen to Subground? I used to like listening to it warming up, but then as the night got on, I'd be like, it needs to go harder now. So it's sort of like you'd always go, okay, this is good for a few sets, but then 4 or 5 in the morning, I want it to be a lot harder. So that maybe that's why. I don't know, but I love Subground. I still wish it was more people were playing it.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think it didn't quite find its home, and perhaps people were not confused about it. That's the wrong word to say, but it was neither here nor there, was it? And that was probably what the problem was, with its lack of longevity. But you could definitely hear, like with T78, he's taken a lot of what he was doing in Subground and applied it to the techno that he's doing now. And I mean, ultimately, what he was doing with Subground was taking his early hardstyle influences into Subground. He's done the same with techno. So yeah, if you haven't checked him out yet, do check him out. T78, he's probably one of my favourite techno artists at the moment. It's great. But where were we going with it? So, oh yeah, that was it. I was starting to do techno with Joe, and we started a production duo called Drumsaw, and we did probably the first, 6 or 7 or 8 releases together as a duo. And I had to pull out of the project, essentially because I just had twins who are 4 years old now, actually.
Wow.
And I literally couldn't get a good night's sleep for about 2 years. And I just wasn't able to keep up with producing the tracks at the rate that we needed to do them. And also, I think in terms of musical direction, I was on a bit of a melodic tip at the time, and Joe was on a harder tip. And I kept on, like, I don't know why, I just wanted to make melodies. And it just didn't work out. And we decided to call it a day, like, amicably. He kept Drumsaw, and he's doing it now, and he's been absolutely smashing it. I had a bit of a, I don't know, I sort of didn't stop producing, but I needed to find out where I was going to go and what I was going to do. So I had a bit of time to think, and decided I would go back to my roots with hard dance. And now this year I've been producing hard dance again. And that was the reason why I haven't done any live streams, is because I'd not been in hard dance for a couple of years, because I've been doing techno for a bit, didn't have much new material. So I just didn't want to come in and just be playing all my old stuff. I wanted to have something fresh and exciting to deliver before I embarked on Facebook Live, which I haven't done yet.
When you talking a little bit about the creative journey there, then you're playing more melodic stuff, then you moved into techno, and then coming back to hard. How do you? Is it just something naturally that you just think, oh, now I'm more into this, or it just sort of naturally, just like how I would listen to music and think, oh, I've listened to house, now sort of I'm interested in techno today, or it sort of changes. But is it kind of like that when you're creating music? You sort of just need to go with what you're feeling, or your gut instinct in some respects.
Yeah, sometimes it's what mood you're in, what you fancy doing. Like with me, like one of the, I don't know whether it's like a problem or a blessing. I like too many genres of electronic music. I even started making drum and bass for a little bit at one point. I've made trance tracks, and I like all of it. And then sometimes I'll just feel like doing this and this. And for a while I was kind of like, we were making techno, but I just want to make melodic techno or progressive, and I don't know, it was just something you felt like doing. It was, maybe it's like an itch that you needed to scratch, or like some sort of inner challenge that you wanted to conquer. Well, it's like that for me, actually. When I'm making music, I'll get turned on to a new sound, and I'll just have to know how to make it. I just won't stop until I've nailed that sound, whatever it is. That's just like, yeah, I get drawn to things. I get like into things. So like in terms of making music, I'll just catch a vibe and I'll be on that and then just get into it, I suppose.
It's really interesting you said that. This is something I was thinking about asking you today, was that if we go back to the beginning, did you always start off as someone who went to clubs and just enjoyed the music and thought, oh, I'd like to become a DJ? Or was it just almost like you said, which is you listen to music, you almost started off becoming, you were a DJ, and then you were like trying to deconstruct and create tracks, that sort of stuff. You almost, which were you first? Were you someone that followed the music and were a clubber, or straight into production? Like, where was your interest?
Let me just think. I heard my first rave tape when I was probably about 9, or yeah, I would say 9 or maybe 10. So yeah, that was like I think my mum's friend who used to pick me up from school when my mum couldn't do it would have rave tapes in her car. It would be like Dance Planet tapes.
Brilliant.
But then at the same sort of time, like my dad lived in London, I lived in Cornwall. I'd visit my dad and I would listen to pirate radio stations, and I'd always be drawn to drum and bass, and well, it was jungle at the time. So like I just liked electronic music because it sounded like nothing else. And I don't know, my dad always was in like rock bands and punk bands and different things like that. And my parents were fairly like, they weren't exactly straight-laced, I wouldn't say. They were like quite liberal and like alternative sort of people. And yeah, I was drawn to electronic music. It just sounded like music from another planet. And that's where it started. Like I was hearing these rave tapes and it sounded amazing. And you could hear the crowd in the background and the whistles and all these people in the big raves and all these noises and sounds, which just sounded like totally fucked up and weird, but great. And I was drawn towards that. So then I started buying tape packs like a lot of kids did, like in the 90s, like happy hardcore tape packs and stuff like that. And then because I think my dad was always a musician and I always wanted to get involved at some point, I decided I wanted a set of decks. And that's how it started. Like I was buying rave tape packs, drum and bass tape packs, and I wanted a set of decks.
How old were you when you got the decks?
14 or 15.
Okay. And what type? Belt drive?
Yeah, Citronic belt drives with, I think they were Citronics. Omnitronic, something chronic.
It's amazing to think anyone could mix on those, really.
I know they were, yeah, they were a challenge. But everybody had the ones that I had as well at the time because they were the ones that they were sold. There was a deal for them in Richer Sounds, and like in the Southwest, like anybody who's in Cornwall would come up to Richer Sounds to buy a set of decks, and anybody who was Plymouth would be doing the same. So like, everybody I knew had these like belt drives, and they had the same. We all had the same mixer as well. It's this little bright yellow mixer with 2 channels and a kill switch for the bass. And yeah, that was it. It was mixing. It was DJing first and foremost. I wanted to mix.
Do you think having that type of like the belt drive and starting with a real basic setup? I mean, DJs who start today start with all this technology, but having to learn to beat match. We're on a belt drive, which is, notoriously impossible almost. I mean, do you think that really helped you hone your skills because you really were working with some of the real basics back then?
Yeah, maybe. Possibly. I suppose it's a bit like riding a bike though. Like I reckon, I don't know actually, to be honest with you, because I'm sure there are some people who started on CDJs and have practiced loads and loads and loads and they're just amazing without having to have gone through the hardships. I don't really know about that. Like I find with mixing, like I don't actually mix all that often these days, unless I'm playing a gig, and it's been like that for like probably about 7 or 8 years. Like whereas when I was a teenager, I'd mix every day. I'd run home from school so I could put a vinyl on and mix. which would like, you know, tidy tracks and stuff like that, and trance and stuff as well. Because although I started with happy hardcore, I quickly got into trance and hard house as soon as it came out, basically. But anyway, so like, where was I going? Like, when I was mixing all the time, I was really, really great. And then now, I don't know, like, I can still mix fairly well, but I don't know whether I got to blame that on having trained on belt drives or just how much I practiced at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, over time, you've clearly honed your skills, you've practiced more. I mean, it's just, over, we're talking many, many years now, we're talking over a decade,
Yeah,
you've had the opportunity to, to play every day and also get influenced by other people that are playing as well. So no doubt you picked up those skills along the way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, sure, actually, just thinking about it, I went off on a bit of a tangent then, but using the belt drives, it must have helped, because they were bloody hard work. And if you can keep them in time, then you're off to a good start as soon as you like graduate onto Technics or CDJs or controllers even now.
Do you remember those first few gigs that you did?
Yeah, sort of, like at the beginning, because no one would like. Well, I lived in Launceston, which is a small town in Cornwall, so there weren't really any nightclubs. There's one nightclub there, and they just played chart music, and they kind of like hated any dance music because they thought it was associated with bad things. And the first few gigs I did, I put on myself, I think, pretty much. So like, me and a few mates would hire out the town hall in Launceston, make our own flyers, hand them out in school, hand them out to everybody we knew, and put on gigs in the town hall. So they were great. And then the first few gigs, like in clubs and stuff, again, at the time, I think I was sending CDs down to Dance Academy, and because everybody wanted to get into Dance Academy in Plymouth, they wouldn't listen to your CDs. I think one of the residents told me once he had to give Tom Costello a CD once a week for a year before Tom like managed to get round to listening to it. That was how the legend went anyway. So like, we kind of gave up on doing that, and we ended up, what did we do? I did actually send some CDs down to Premonition in Plymouth, and they started booking me for room 2 in the candy store. And then we also, to get into Dance Academy, would put on our own gigs in the academy. So we'd pay to hire the club on certain quiet nights and put on our own events up in the gallery in the smaller room.
Okay.
And so yeah, those were like my early gigs. Were like, it was kind of a little bit renegade, really, because it's like, nobody will listen to you because there's so many people sending CDs in, nobody really cares. So you have to put them on yourself and then build up a following, and then people start taking notice when your club night is like pulling more people in than the club down the road and stuff.
It's funny how it works out. Now we do have to talk about Dance Academy.
Yeah.
Because Dance Academy for me is where I found my love of music, like really found my love of music. I suppose my story was I used to go out to clubs, and this is before I discovered dance music. So I was probably, 16, going into cheesy clubs or whatever. I always remember just going into those clubs going, I hate this, but I love coming out. And I don't like the scene. I don't like the atmosphere. I don't like the people. Like, it just felt wrong. I was like, this shouldn't be what a night out was right for me. I was like, I want to come out and listen to great music and I dance, and everyone's getting off of each other, all this rubbish. I was just like, this isn't what I wanted. And then someone said to me, they said, you should, someone was talking about Union Street, and they were talking about, there's all this music that goes on down there. The clubs are open till 7 a.m, and there's all this music. It's bang, bang, bang. It's awful. And I was like, that sounds amazing. I was like, where is that? Where are you talking about? I was like, obviously no, I'd never go there. It sounds terrible. But where are you talking about? And they went, it's, these clubs like Dance Academy in Plymouth and Union Street. It's all full of all these people. I was like, I phoned up my best mate. I was like, we're going to Union Street this weekend. and then I discovered dance music, and I was like, this is what I've been missing. And I was 17, 18 probably, and Dance Academy changed my life, because it was just I was like, these are my people. This is my music. These are my people. And I started listening to Slinky and everything else that kind of went. I was like, oh, get it now. Trance, hard house, all of this stuff. I was like, this is what I've wanted all these years. And I fell in love with Dance Academy. And I probably kept on going, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, up until it got closed, unfortunately. But I had probably had a good few years. I don't know, 4 or 5 years where I was going almost every week to Icon, watching Tom Costello. And I just love that place. We'll always love it. I've gone to clubs all around the world, and Dance Academy will still be the best one. But,
yes.
So what was your experience there? Did you get to go clubbing at Dance Academy? So I know we talked a little bit about you beginning to play there, but we'll talk about that in a second. Did you go clubbing there?
Yeah, certainly did. So back then, what was I? I would have been about 15. And I always used to like hang out with people in the year above me, and we'd hang out with people who were older than us. And there were like some of the like the older crew, we'd call them back then, who were going out clubbing. And a couple of people like started talking about this place in Plymouth called Dance Academy, and they were like, "Oh, you've got to go to Dance Academy. It's amazing. It's blah blah blah, this and that." And like at the time we were already listening to the music, so we were already listening to like trance, we were already listening to hard house, we were already listening to like techno and stuff like that. Happy hardcore kind of died by then, but we still listened to that a little bit. And like, you know, we would see the flyers for Dance Academy, and they'd be in the local record shop, and you'd see some of the people you'd be listening to anyway, like Marky G and M Zone and Judge Jules, and you know, all of these people. So yeah, at that time it was like year 2000, and you could get away with fake IDing back then. So at the time it was common. You could get a national student ID card, which was a fake ID, and that would work in all clubs at the time, pretty much. Yeah, these poor kids these days, they can't do it, can't do that. But we were all doing it at that time. And like, I remember my friend who was in the year above me called Ollie, he got the first one. And he's like, "Look at this, guys, it's got a hologram. I ordered it on the internet, blah, blah, blah." And there we all got this one. It looked like a proper ID card. It was like, looked like a European, I think it was called like a European student card or national ID card or whatever. And it had a hologram. So yeah, we started going down to Dance Academy. Always would get ID because I looked like I was about 10, but I'd be like, "Look, here's my ID card," and just look young. And there we go. I went in when I was 15, blew my mind. And yeah, similar story to you. Went down as much as I could for about a good 5-6 years. Yeah, love the place.
Some of the best nights of my life. I lost a tooth. I lost a tooth. I always remember that New Year's Eve. I fell over, hit my face on the dance floor, and I was like, I don't care that there's blood on my face. I'm gonna carry on dancing.
Yeah.
I just everything. I mean, Marky G. That's where I discovered Marky G, and I used to watch him in awe. The way he was such a showman, especially up the way Dance Academy was designed. Because of course you got the 3 levels, and he was just on the decks. And he'd smash records over his head on the side. I was like, he's like a total show. Plus the music is amazing, and fierce and hard and dirty and everything. I was just like, this is just a complete show watching him. And yeah, I love watching Marky G there. Yeah,
he used to be my hero for many years. He was an idol. Yeah, Marky G, what a legend. What an absolute legend. I was really pleased, like later down the line, he actually played a couple of tracks that I produced, and that was like a good moment in the production career, like after idolizing like Marky G when you're a kid, a young teenager.
Which tracks was he playing? That must be incredible to have someone of Marky G's level to be playing your tracks who you've idolized. It's just incredible, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. I think, what ones did he play? I think it was actually a remix that I did for a guy called Busho, who doesn't produce anymore, but it was called It's Not Over Yet. But the remix I did was pretty much, I changed everything. The only thing I kept was the vocal. So it was pretty much my track. but with just a vocal in it. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. He was he was playing that track for a bit, and that had like a techno-y Uberdruck sort of influence. If you remember the Uberdruck guys.
Oh yeah, I love them. Love them.
Yeah, they were a huge influence in my early productions. I just loved that like futuristic techno edge to the hard sound. So he played a track that I made that sounded, I thought it sounded Uberdrucky. And then I think he played another track that I did, which was a remix for Uberdruck. They did a track which sampled Freddy Krueger called Here's Freddy. Okay. And it was signed to GermanTrance.com Records, which is where everybody would buy German trance and hard trance back in the early days. And Justin from GermanTrance.com got me into remix the Uberdruck Here's Freddy track. So I remixed that, and I think Marky G was playing that one at the time it was out as well. There might have been a couple of others that he was on as well when I was doing collaborations with Side Effect, who was my DJ partner, who we spoke about earlier, for many years. I'm sure he played one or two that we did together there as well. But yeah.
I remember seeing, I mean, it was Marky G is the one that stuck out the most, and then Tidy Boys. Like, it was always a special time when Tidy Boys would play. And obviously, we both talked about, both of them went to the Weekenders. Like, the Tidy Boys was always a big one. It was Tidy Boys, Marky G, which I remember the most. And yeah, just such an amazing time. Yes. And for you also to have, to played in that club. Talk me through what happens on the last night of Dance Academy.
Yeah, the last night. So so we all know it got closed in 2006. But for me, as well as losing the club that we all love, for me it was like quite personal, because I had wanted to get into that club for good 4 years as a DJ. I'm going to rewind back a little bit. So it was hard to get anybody to listen to your CD. So myself and a friend of mine called Josh Hall and another friend called Lloyd Moody we hired Dance Academy out on the Friday night when they had like a drum and bass night or a hardcore night. We'd hire the gallery out and put on our own nights in there, essentially. And we did that. My aim wasn't to really make money off it, although we did make money off it. It was to get to a point where I was well known enough to get booked on merit rather than having to put my own nights on. So did that for a while. Started obviously building a relationship with the club and getting to know Tom and Tommy Quick and all the other residents there. So that was a good way in to network into the club. And then after a while, I actually they had a DJ competition every year. And after a while, I'd actually get let into the competition. At first, they didn't even let me into the competition. And then they knew who I was. So I got my CD got listened to at last. And then got into the DJ competition, played in the main room in the DJ competition, which was incredible. And then it got to the end of the DJ competition, and I came joint first with Kim Ayres, who was a Tidy Tracks DJ, Aidan Howard, who was another amazing local Plymouth DJ, and then there was myself. So I think the reason why they put us joint first was because Kim was obviously getting involved with Tidy, so she was like a pillar of hard house. Aidan was like more the house trance scene, and he had his own thing going on in the city for that. And I was hard. So like they covered like all of the bases of what was played in that club and got themselves 3 new residents who had already built up their own name. So anyway, like I came first in this competition, joint with Kim and Aidan, and it was my night to play. First opening set in the main room. It was Alex Kidd headlining, somebody else cool. Can't remember who else it was. It was Alex, me, and I was due to play at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And club got raided at midnight. Bang, that was it. I didn't get to play. Luckily I didn't get arrested because I was a good boy. I wasn't doing anything naughty. So the club got raided. There's a photo of me online you can see with like 3 policemen stood behind me, but I wasn't actually getting nicked. just to make that statement.
We'll share it later because it's you said show it to me. It is a funny photo in some respect. I mean, we can sort of funny. I mean, but God, just that night, my best mate was there. I was traveling, so I didn't go. And my best mate was there, and I couldn't believe it because then he emailed me when I was away, and he said we got raided. Was it? I don't know if it was a Friday or Saturday, but he was
Saturday.
like, yeah, it was Saturday. Yeah, he says it got raided. He said we all got completely closed down, and I was just shocked. I mean, most hearts were breaking all over, our scene at that time. And I just thought, because when I was traveling, I was like, oh, I'm going to come back. I can't wait to come back to the academy. And they're like, no, it's gone. It's closed. You can't go. I couldn't understand what had happened. And, just gutted that happened with Dance Academy.
Yeah, it was a tragic loss. It was like, also like, it was kind of like at that sort of point, the UK hard dance and hard house scene and trance to a certain extent started bombing.
Yeah,
that was like the beginning of the end sort of thing.
I mean, maybe it would have gone that way anyway. I don't know, because I know it is a niche area, but that niche area has got a real following that are devout, that love it and always will love it. But of course, the UK club scene has sort of reduced in some respects over the years, and it's gone very festival based. Which is great, but it makes it so much harder for people to come through because there's just less gigs to play, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. With the funny enough though, with the hard scene in the UK, it did die really. Let's not make any bones about it. It died, but it's kind of like had a bit of a resurgence lately, especially with hard house. Like if you look at what's going on with Tidy, they're booming again. Like they're bringing out albums. Their album they released this week with Nicholson, it's on Tidy 2. It's a trance album. Great album, fantastic listen. It's like gone top 10 on Beatport and stuff like that. It's like, if you follow like Ammo, who's one half of the Tidy Boys, his posts this week, he's been just like elated. Because it's all kicking off again. I think what's happened is all the people who used to listen to Tidy, who then became grown-ups like us and had families and got real jobs and stopped going out clubbing every weekend and had kids. I think like there was that big lull where everybody got serious and started grown-upping. And then now, like, I think their kids have all got old enough to, like, for them to actually go away and have a wonky weekend and go out again and stuff like that. And like, I think what people found was like, I think like back in the day, I think people just thought it would die and that would be it. Almost like what happened with Subground, but it didn't. And people now are a bit older and stuff, but they still love that old hard house sound or that old hard trance, hard style sound that they loved when they were in their 20s. And now it's getting a resurgence again because people are listening to it in their older years, in their 30s or something.
Yeah, it's a good analysis actually, because I think once you're in, if you love hard house, although you do change your sound a little bit, because there was definitely a point where hardstyle started to take off.
Yeah.
And then hardstyle started becoming, it's almost like hard house was like the mainstream of hard music for a while with Tidy Boys. And then it's felt like the scene went really different, and it went hardstyle, but quite European hardstyle, because that's when all the big events in Amsterdam and Europe were beginning to kick off. And then that just grew to a completely different, and went a different level altogether.
Yes.
But that was very much the festival scene, with DEF CON 1 and everything else. I mean, it's just all, but that hardstyle, I was going to say this to you, that hardstyle sounds really different to some of the hardstyle we would listen to or you play in Plymouth. And I was like, when I was listening to your mix on Kutski, on the Kutski podcast, it's like, that's why I got really excited for listening to you again, because I was like, oh, that's the original sound, that raspy hard. And I was like, yes, that's it's like the UK, but very specifically that area, that Plymouth area. I think Plymouth created that sound. I think that's our sound in some respects, your sound. But the European hardstyle sounds really different. I really struggled to get into it as much.
Yeah, it is really different. That's basically that is it. It's like early hardstyle. That's the sound that you're talking about, and like the stuff that I play now, it's new, like this, the tracks that I selected in that Kutski mix on his Keeping the Rave Alive show, which is, you know, last month or something, all of the tracks on there are brand new. Like 3 of them were ones, or 2 were ones that I've produced, 2 or 3, I can't remember. And then the other ones are like brand new tracks that I'd edited or mixed early and stuff like that, so that like you still kept that offbeat reverse bass, tough sort of like energy. And that's kind of been a little bit signature to my sound. Like I'll still actually play the new European Dutch hard style, but I say new, it's actually not new anymore, it's the norm now. But I'll often edit it so it still sounds like that old early hardstyle vibe. But like, yeah, like you said, what happened with hardstyle originally, it was all about the offbeat reverse bass. And that was kind of like a continuation from hard trance, really, but just a bit harder. Oh, you still there?
Yeah, here, still here.
My internet's a bit intermittent. I might have to jump in and out. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Yeah, my internet does that like every couple of hours.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay. How do we get up to?
Revert, like the hard style sound. So yeah, okay. I was going off on another tangent.
No, go for it. Go for that. That's what the show's about. Go off on as many tangents as you like.
I feel like I haven't been on this many tangents in like ever. It's like you've given me this like freedom to what's the word, like verbal diarrhea on your podcast.
I want it. That's what it's all about. This is all about. This is Joe Rogan style.
Okay, cool. Good.
Well, one day when I've got my own studio, we will literally go Joe Rogan style for 2-3 hours.
Yeah, man, I'll be there. I'll come.
You're invited.
I'll come in physical form. We'll drink some beers and have a chit chat. Nice.
Yeah.
So hardstyle. Yeah. So you heard the mix on Kutski. It gave you that old school vibe. You were like, yes, this is the.
Yeah, it did. And do you know what the funny thing I was doing? I train, right? I like to go to the gym in the morning and train all that stuff. And I started taking on a bit of a new training regime in the summer. And I go over to a tennis court, and I got the battle ropes out, and I sort of do some weights, and I run around and everything. I look like a lunatic in the middle of the village I live in, and especially if they could if they could hear the music I'm listening to as well, they would think I'm a lunatic. But yeah, I was on the battle ropes, giving it some, listening to Kutski's mix, and then your stuff came on, and all those feelings, I've got it now, the shivers, the feel of just like, oh, I love it when these types of tracks are played, and I just thought, oh, I love you. I was like, this is brilliant. Cheers. I was like, because again, if you know, then you know what it feels like to be at Dance Academy on the dance floor when you got those types of tracks being played, and it was just like, oh, it was so brilliant. That mix was just incredible.
Thank you. It's good to hear from somebody who gets it, you know.
What was your thinking behind all the tracks, and how did you put it all together? You mentioned you edited some as well, and
yeah. So like with hard dance, like my ethos has always been, and it always was like, I've got a certain sound and energy that I put into my music, but it has to be futuristic in a certain degree, or it has to be current or new. And that was easy originally because, like, you know, I was buying trance records, and all of a sudden I discovered German trance, and nobody had heard of German trance before. And then there we go, and banging, it was new, and it had that vibe anyway. Then that happened with hard trance, and then hard trance turned into hardstyle, and everything was just always banging and new and stuff like that. And then hardstyle changed and evolved. In about 2007, 2008, it sort of changed and went to that Dutch festival sort of hardstyle sound, which is what it is now. It's a new genre, really, in a way.
It is.
And I wanted to continue playing new sounds, but also keep my sound, our sound that we love. So what it forced me to do was A, make tracks myself, which I was doing anyway, and B, do a lot of editing. So like with the new or the current hardstyle, the reverse bass, that bookworm sort of sound is still in there. It's still in there, but they just don't make a big show of it. Like the odd track will have a reverse bass drop, and then it will go into a different type of kick. So I would just find all the tracks, and this is how I do it now. I'll find any track that's got a reverse bass, a good one that I like, and if it's got a bit that's got a different sound or a different vibe, I'll just edit that bit out using music production software and build my sets like that. So it's still, the sounds are new, they're fresh, they're current, but they're still that old school reverse bass sound. And that's it. That's kind of like how I do it. And I like my sets, to think about my sets like in energy. So like I always like to come in hard. Like I'm going to make an entrance. When I come on, it's going to be, I'll play probably like my best track will either be the first track or the last track I play, because those are the ones that people remember.
Well, that, funny enough, that's what gave me the shivery moment. The great moment when I was out there training that day was because, you know, it was introduced, and then it was, and sometimes, you know, I listen to all of Kutski's stuff because I just, you know, it really takes you back to the rave again. It's a brilliant show. And sometimes it goes in a completely different direction. You're like, okay, cool, I like it. But on this particular time when I listened to you, it was like that first really hard reverse bass, and it's hitting. I was like, yes, this is going to be a good mix.
Oh, thanks, man. That was my track as well. The first one on there was one of the tracks I made this year, which I haven't released yet or put up on SoundCloud. Actually, I put it up on SoundCloud, but I haven't published it. Slack. I think I'm going to give that one away for free as well. So if you do any mixing, I'll let you know when it goes up, and you can download the full track.
Do you know what? The mixing one's a funny one, because I did play for a while. I was playing in clubs up here and everything else. But what I sort of found, I was never really good enough, but I was just like, I knew sort of tracks to play and everything else, and I was like, oh, this will make a good set, and I do it. But I was just like, it's really detracting from how much I love listening to music. And I think I got to the point I was like, which way do I want to go with this? Do I want to be someone that just listens and enjoys and has this as my time when I get to enjoy music every day? I mean, I consume, I've got house music on all day. So training in the morning is normally hard, and it's defected and house all day when I'm working. So it's constantly on. And I'm like, and then when I started mixing and playing and making edits and stuff, and I was like, it's become too much of a work and a job for me now. And I was like, no, I did play a lot. I played with Marky G, I played with organ donors. But I put on my own nights and stuff. I put on my own nights, Raw Phil, Judge Jules played with those and that. And I was like, that was my thing. I think I enjoyed it, but I was like, I think I'm going to be a connoisseur. I'm just going to enjoy it, because I think that's the thing for me, I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. A lot of people do and have dabbled in mixing, and some go either way. Some just go, nah, I'm going to enjoy it, and some carry on and become DJs or what have you.
That's why I was interested in what you said at the beginning, because you were like, when you hear a track, you want to deconstruct it and work out how it was made, and then sort of put your own version on it. And that's the thing, because I never had that. I was just like, that just sounds amazing, and I couldn't make it any better. It's perfect as it is. I don't want to get into the detail, but that's where, obviously, with your production skills, you think, oh, I can add something to it. We should talk about your productions.
Yeah, okay. So like, just going off what you were saying then, I've always like listened to these sounds in these tracks in electronic music, and always just thought like, how the hell does that noise come about? Like, hot. Sorry about that. So I've always listened to these tracks and thought to myself, how's that noise been made? Like, how do they do it? Yeah. And I just wanted to know. So in terms of like producing, I've always been like one of these sort of people. And I think in some ways it's been a hindrance. Like, I've always wanted to make my own sounds, make my own bass lines, make my own everything, really. And it's great for me, but I mean, like, Joe Bloggs listening to my track wouldn't be able to tell whether I made that bass line using a synthesizer from scratch, or I sampled that bass line off Techno Boy and then added some distortion and made it different. Nobody would be able to tell, and like people like yourself probably wouldn't give two shits. But for me, I just always wanted to be able to make it myself, like from scratch, those noises, those sounds. So
that's the creative, that's the art side, is that if you're really passionate and you really love it, it's that part where, you know, you want to make those things, you want to put that track out and go, that's all of that is mine. You know, it's that to say that, you know, you created it from scratch. And yeah, it's that. I mean, I can completely understand that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's like an achievement, like that you get to know about and keep inside, even if the world doesn't really care and they just hear a good or a bad track. You know what you know what's gone into it and stuff like that, and it's satisfying when you've been trying to make a certain sound for ages and you've been wondering how the hell do they do that, and then you finally crack it. That's quite satisfying for me as well. Like, I'm quite interested in sound design with synthesis, really, sound synthesis.
I mean, how do you make some of these really big bass lines? Because so the organ donor guys, Scott and Matt, I was chatting to them after one of the gigs one night, and they were like, you wouldn't believe how long it takes to make some of the bass lines that they create. They're like, it can take months, absolutely months, to kind of create it, to then test it and everything else. So how do you go through like creating some of these bass lines, and how do you make that noise?
Yeah, do you know what? Funny you should say that. I've got a kick in the bass in a project. I haven't made a full track out of it yet, but I've got this kick in the bass. I spent days just making this kick in the bass perfect. But I mean, with the reverse bass, funnily enough, it took me ages to realise this. And then I think I saw some tutorial or something, or some DJ talking about it. I can't remember, it was a long time ago. But like the way you make the really, really gnarly hardstyle reverse bass is you take one of those big kind of gabba sounding modern hardstyle kicks, you know, the ones that go kong, like that.
Yeah.
Dong. You take one of those kicks, which you have to make yourself, or you don't have to make them yourself. There's plenty of samples around, but I like to make them myself. And you take that kick, it goes kong, and you cut the tail off of the kick. And then you do a thing called an envelope, where instead of it going hung, you fade it in. So it's rum, and then you shape the sound, like as in you just shape how it looks. Like you imagine it like starting off looking like a square. You'd shape it so it almost looks like a triangle, as such. And then it turns into a vwum, and then you just shape it like you're molding a piece of clay. But it's a piece of audio. But it's not just that. You have to make it fit with the kick drum as well. So you've got the kick drum and you've got the offbeat bass, and you have to shape both of them to fit together. And then you also you layer them. So like I'll have like two versions of that one bass. And like if you zoom right in on the sound wave, it'll be quite spiky quite a lot of the time. And like if you move versions of that bass line next to each other, and some with distortion, some without distortion, sometimes they'll come which in and out of phase, which is like a technical term for like how sound waves line up. If you have two simple sound waves, if they start and end at exactly the same point in time, they're in phase. But if you move one so that one sound wave starts a tiny bit later, they'll go out of phase. And what it'll do is like, how you hear it is like the sounds almost start eating each other. It's like when do you remember mixing hard house and the beats were so perfectly in, they would start popping.
Yeah, they make us. If you met, that was always the art of if you could beat match it perfectly, it would make a slightly different sounds. Like the pop type sound. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's called going out in and out of phase. And so like with making the bass lines, like you'll have different layers of this kick, and then you'll have different distortions on them, and then you'll move them in and out of phase with each other, and then the tone changes, and you're just moving them left and right in quite a minute way until you hear something click, and you're like, right, that sounds really good. And then what you do is you do this thing called Sidechain, which is basically like, it's an automatic volume duck, so you can make the bassline pump. So I'm not, I don't know, do you want me to explain Sidechain?
Yeah, this is interesting. This is proper interesting. I love getting into this detail.
So there's an audio effect called a compressor, which essentially it's a dynamic, it's something that controls the dynamics of sound. So a compressor, you set it up and it says, once my sound hits a certain volume, it's going to automatically turn that sound down by a certain amount at a certain speed. So you can set a compressor up to get its trigger from the kick. So whenever the kick kicks in, it will compress, so it'll bring the volume down. Whenever the kick is not in, it'll open and the volume will come up. And if you put that on the bass line, it will start pumping, so it will have more of a vroom, and that's called sidechain, essentially. Okay. So like you have the sidechain, you have the distortion, you have different distortions, and then you do lots of EQing, like which is basic equalizing. And then the thing that I do to make the bass lines really pop at the moment is I'll set it up so the under 200 hertz, which is bass frequency and sub frequency, that will be in mono. So it would be like, if you imagine being in the middle of a pair of speakers, it will be dead center. And then I'll have the higher frequencies in the bass line, which are more fizzy and distorted. I'll pan them out, and then they fill the speakers, and it just makes the bass line sound absolutely huge. But you've got to keep the low bass in mono, because else it won't translate well in a club. But the high bass the high frequencies in your bass line, you can pan them out and you can do things with them, and it will make it sound really big.
And is it the way that your approach to doing this, is this quite specific to the harder music we listen to, or is this kind of how, like if you're making house tracks, is it a similar way, or is it a different process altogether?
I'd say with a house track, I don't produce house music.
No, it's probably, I was just thinking, I was just probably not the best of questions, not because it's like when you're making, it sounds so complicated. I just wonder how I suppose it's very specific to this particular sound that we love.
Well, it is, but with house music, you'd definitely be using sidechain on your bass, and you'd definitely be keeping the low end mono in exactly the same way. I don't know whether you would pan the higher frequencies out to make them big out in the speakers.
Yeah, because that's what you want. You want that big sounds out in there. Yeah, okay. It must be pretty amazing when you've been creating a track and then you hear it in a club, and then do you think, oh, that didn't quite go the way I want it? Actually, I'm gonna have to go and tweak some bits to make it sound different on the bigger systems. Yeah,
that's all definitely has been the case most times. Like you'll always, well, I say most times, not always actually, but in the earlier days, yes. In the earlier days, like you think it sounds good at home and go and play it in a club and it would sound like, oh God, listen to how loud that bass is, you need to turn that down. I'd usually have the kick in the bass too loud. That would be what I'd have back in the early days. You'd think like, you want more bass. And that's a mistake that all up and coming or new producers will always make, is they'll have too much bass because you think you want more bass. But really, you actually need balance. You need actually the bass to be lower in the mix than you think it would be, so that you can turn the whole track up as a whole louder, because bass frequencies take up more energy than high frequencies. So if you have your bass too loud, there's no room for the whole track to be loud together.
Wow, it's interesting. This is exactly why I wasn't able to carry on, because I just thought I'm never going to get into enough technical detail to really understand it, and I was just like, I've just got to focus on being a connoisseur to enjoy it. I'm so pleased people like yourself have taken it on, because you know, it's the sounds just, you know, people just love it. Just absolutely love it. We really do.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I'm going to have to wrap up soon.
Wow.
The kids are back.
Wow, we're going to have to. Wow. Talk to me briefly about the kids.
Yes. Okay. So I have two boys who are twins called Theo and Forrest. They're now 4 years old.
How was it growing up how was it I say growing up, how was it having twins?
It was like going off a cliff edge. In all honesty, it was quite, because obviously you don't try for twins, do you? So you try for one, and then you find out you're going to get twins, and then you try and kid yourself that it's all going to be fine. And then they arrive, and it's all quite scary, because not only are you a brand new parent, you've got two of them, and yeah, it was quite tough for us at the beginning, because they didn't sleep very well for about 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
Even that, like last night wasn't I didn't really sleep too good last night, but that's quite rare that I'll have a bad night now. It's generally fine, which is why I've got back into production. I had to pretty much ground to a halt for a little while, because I couldn't like stay awake producing music and then be woken up all night from having children. So it just had to stop for a minute. But now I'm getting sleep again. It started again. But the first couple of years, I'm not going to lie, were really hard. But I mean, the way they are now, they're just so incredible, so incredible. Unique little personalities. I mean, like I just tell myself, like, I'm blessed to have been their shepherd of life. I don't know whether there's a better way of saying that.
Oh, I like it.
Like I'm their shepherd, their guardian of two beautiful little spirits, two amazing little guys, and I'm just so lucky to be in the place that I am now with them, which is amazing.
Wow, that is amazing.
So yeah, got some fun times to look forward to with them for sure. Especially with, I'm looking forward to getting into sports and stuff with them. I mean, I love sports, but I haven't had time for sports in my life because music has taken all of that time. So I know I'm going to get into sports with them, playing or watching at the sidelines, or whatever.
Yeah, wow, it's good. We've got our first baby coming in 4 weeks.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah. I keep on checking with Aleda, because she keeps on saying, "Oh, they're going to be coming," or "There." I'm like, "What's this day? We've done the count. We found out it was one.
Just one, yeah."
I'm like, "What's this day?" She's like, "Oh, he." And I'm like, "What do you mean he? We don't know. We don't." She's like, and then sometimes she'll say she. I'm like, oh, okay, wow. I just never know what's going to happen. But yeah, 4 weeks. 4 weeks today.
Congratulations. So you decided not to know then?
Yeah, we thought we wouldn't find out. Just it might be a little bit that added excitement on top.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't believe you had twins and what that journey was like. Those few years of non-sleeping, but having two to contend with, the responsibility that comes with.
Yeah, well, it's normal now. It's fine, but it is tough on people at first. I mean, some people can have it lucky and they can be good sleepers. With us, they weren't, and nobody will ever really know unless you have them what it's like at the beginning. But now we're blessed, so yeah. I mean, that's it. There's a happy ending.
Yeah, amazing. Well, good luck with all the sports days that are going to be coming up, no doubt. I'm sure that'll be fun for you to get back involved in. So to play us out today, let's go with one of your tracks. So maybe what track are we going to leave with, so we can and also what's the reason why you chose this one?
I think we're going to leave with a track, the newest one I've done, called Forever, which I'm hoping it's going to come. I'm hoping at this stage it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I'm hoping it's going to come out on Kutski's label like the last one did. But I only just sent it to him yesterday, so he hasn't even seen the email yet. But I'm really hoping that he likes it, because I personally think it's one of my best tracks to date, and that's why I want to play it, because it's my newest one. So that's the one I want to play. And it's got a vocal, it's got a trancey sound to it as well as dropping hard. It's a bit faster as well. It's 160 BPM, so it's almost got a hardcore influence and a trance influence over my sound, sort of thing. So like in the breakdowns, it's really uplifting and melodic, and then it hits hard and the drops, and then it breaks down again. It gets uplifting and some singing and some chords and pads, and then it drops bang. So yeah, that would hopefully be the one. When is this going out? This podcast
soon, next week probably.
Next week, if not, because there might be a thing like where, you know, I don't like to put a track in the public domain before it's secured on the label. So if it's not that one, it will be. I think there's enough. The one that I'm going to give away for free called "Just Wait," the one that you heard first on that mix. It'll be that one. So it'll be either "Just Wait" or "Forever," depending on whether it gets. Yeah, because I mean I had before with the track that a track in the past where I sent it to somebody and they've said, "Oh, because it's been played already in the public domain, I would have signed it, but I'm not going to now." So I'm always.
It's actually quite funny for whoever is listening to this right now, this podcast, they're going to go, "What track's it going to be? I don't know."
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
It's quite funny. We could go.
Dip.
Funny thing is, I interviewed Switch Disco, and they couldn't decide on the track. So I was like, okay, well, all I can say is it's a Switch Disco track. No one knows what track it might be. maybe we're going to be in the same position, Mike.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'll let you give me a deadline for next week, and I'll send one of them over to you.
Well, in that case, introducing a track. It's a hard track. It's by yourself, Mike Steventon, and it's brilliant. That's all we know.
Thank you. It'll be one of two hopefully brilliant tracks.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Brilliant talking to you. Good luck with everything that happens in terms of the kids moving forward, the productions. Let's definitely catch up again in the future. I'd love to chat to you again sometime. Yeah,
definitely. I'd love to come back on the show. Let's keep in touch as well. Like, it's good to speak to somebody who's got a similar story to me with you know, Plymouth Dance Academy, the scene, you know, all of that lot. It's been good.
Love it.
Nice one. All right, so
good man. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.